Hello, welcome to the EU SME Center's webinar series of today. Welcome in Europe. I think it's morning right now, and welcome here to everyone listening to us in China. My name is Martina Gerst. I'm advisor for standards and market conformity. I will moderate this webinar today together with Klaus Ziegler, who supports us, and I will also introduce Markus Barek, who has volunteered to join us from Europe to do the webinar today. And due to the fact that sometimes we have internet connection or internet speed problems, Klaus has offered to, if the connection breaks, just to jump in and go through the slides. So on the next slide, you can see basically the panel. So if you have questions during our webinar, please just put them in. We get them here and we will try to answer as much as we can. If not, I will later on explain how after the webinar we will come back to you and try to answer all your questions. Just a brief introduction of the EU SME Center. We are based in Beijing, and the EU SME Center is a project funded by the European Union. So our basically core business is to assist European small and medium-sized enterprises to export to China and, if necessary, to establish, develop and maintain commercial activities here in the market in different sectors. So we are offering free and confidential information and advice, and of course also practical support services. The fields or the areas where we offer this information and advice is in business development, standards and conformity, human resources and training, and legal. So what you can ask us over our website or via email is like inquiries with a specific problem, but you will also find on our website more than 90 publications. We do webinars like the one today for different interesting topics, but we also offer databases. Sometimes European companies which are new to China come to use our office space, the so-called hot desks, but we also do briefings with delegations joining us or individuals in advance concerning possible business partners, or matchmaking and networking is also on our list. Today, I will introduce now our speaker, Markus Barek. He is, how we say here in China, old China hand. He's active here in China since 2001, frequently working with government in green technologies, like the green tech in Switzerland. He is, or he has consulted successfully a lot of companies in the area of green technology, being active here in China. And his current role, he's the president of Sanlumo China. It's a consultancy which is based in Beijing and Hangzhou, advising Chinese and European companies in green technologies. And today, Markus will talk about overcoming regulatory challenges in introducing green building components in China. And Markus, do you understand me?
Yes, I understand you clearly. Thanks.
Okay, so I will hand over now to Markus. And yeah, Markus, so I hope you can see the introductory slide, the overcoming regulatory challenges. And yeah, so please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Martina. Good morning, everybody in Europe. Good morning, good afternoon, all participants in China. I'm glad to have the chance today to make this webinar with you. The content of our webinar today, I think the slides will not go on.
I have clicked now the table of contents.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah.
The content of our webinar today, first we will give you a short introduction. Second, we will show you some figures from the construction sector and the green building component market in China to show you the enormous potential. Then we will switch to the regulatory framework, followed from the government initiatives. After this, we will give you a questionnaire guideline to find out which regulations are relevant for certain products. The next chapter will show the necessary steps to introduce a new standard, followed by a case study from a European SME, where we will show you the typical experience of Western companies when they enter and go to China. Last but not least, we want to make a short summary.
So should I click forward? I did it.
Try to click. But
I have already clicked.
Okay, why are standards in green building very important? Beside the 12 five-year plan, the Chinese government has announced a lot of reform plans within the last month and years. They all have one thing in common. China's society is supposed to become more modern and greener. These government policies set ambitious targets to reduce Chinese overall energy use. This development means a very high potential for European SMEs in the green building sector. Despite the potential, an in-depth understanding of the environment, especially concerning standards and regulation, is a key element in any success. Being compliant with standards, technical regulations and conformity assessments play an important role in ensuring a smooth market access. Especially in the Chinese building component industry, standardization is nowadays a very important topic. As an example, during the first half year of 2012 only, the SAC, the Standardization Administration of China, put not less than 20 new sector standards into effect, which cover the building components industry. Okay.
Okay, I think, thank you very much for the introduction, Markus. We just got some feedback from, before we come to the poll, just feedback for you. The audience says your voice is too low. Maybe you can speak a bit louder.
Oh, okay, I tried.
Yeah, okay. So we launched our first poll. I think you can see now, or the audience can see now. Wait. The audience can see now. We have prepared 5 questions basically, or 5 answers for the questions. What's your professional background? So we would like to know, are you a company representative in the green building component sector, or are you not in this sector, or you are a researcher, an expert, or a consultant? So actually the poll is running. Poll in progress. So it looks like that we have the research community today is quite big. And share. Okay. Can you see the results, Markus?
No.
No. Okay. Okay.
Now
actually,
I see it.
Now you see it. Okay. Today, what you can see basically, most of our audience are researchers. It's almost 30%, but then followed by others, so which are not in the green building sector, and then we basically have experts and consultants in the green building sector, but also representatives of green building component sectors. Okay. So this is our audience, and I already have clicked again, so you must see now the next slide, the market segments of the green building, and I would like to overhand to you again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before starting now with the market figures, we will give you our understanding about green buildings and green building components. We define green buildings as environmentally sustainable buildings designed, constructed and operated to minimize the total environmental impacts. In this context, the green building component is defined as a component that is designed to reduce the energy load of a building. Further, a green building component should be compliant with an energy efficiency design protocol such as LEED or Chinese evaluation standard for green buildings. Okay.
Okay. Should I click to the next slide? Yes, I clicked. Ah, now you are, wait, are you going back or should I?
Can you go back?
Yeah,
okay, now.
I did it, yeah.
Okay, now we want to show you some figures from the construction sector in China. China overtook the USA as the world's largest construction market in 2010, now accounting for 41% of Asia Pacific's total construction spending in 2012. This makes it almost 3 times the size of the Japanese construction market. In 2012, the construction market made up 90% of the Chinese GDP. Furthermore, construction spending has forecast to grow at 8% per year over the next 5 years. The 12th five-year plan for energy conservation and carbon reduction from 2012 calls the construction industry to control energy consumption of the buildings. Currently, buildings account for 28% of all energy use in China. Go.
Yeah.
The ongoing urbanization and pollution problems in the city stimulate the government to call for energy savings and carbon reduction. The construction industry should control the energy consumption of the buildings. Currently, buildings account for 28% of all energy use in China. Energy savings has to be taken into account during the design and construction stages. The structure of an industry is rather confusing. Over 75,000 companies operate in the Chinese construction sector. Foreign companies play a minor role in the market up to now, which is dominated by big state-owned enterprises. The industry is forced to invest in green research and production capabilities, which could be an interesting market for Western SMEs that can help the Chinese companies to become greener. The green building materials still make up a small proportion in the world's largest construction market. The actual estimated market share is around 5%. The reason are that there is still limited public awareness of the economical and health benefits of green buildings, so there is currently relatively little pressure from the end consumers to construct green buildings, as their main focus is on raising apartment prices, location and features. And on the other reason is that the government interest was not big to push these technologies in the past. Now the situation has changed. The Chinese government started to make green buildings a central focus in its current strategy to become a more sustainable society. These government policies make green buildings practice more widespread in the coming years. China's goal of increasingly strict construction standards is driving higher demand for eco-friendly building materials. Okay. The market for green buildings material will most probably develop accordingly. The estimation is that in 2020, 5.5 million square meters are expected to be green buildings, and the Chinese green construction market will make a turnover of 122 trillion RMB in 2020. So we can see the support from government will help the green construction market to become a relevant part of the total construction sector. Now I want to go on with the regulatory framework. All companies that either want to export, produce or sell their construction material in China are obliged to follow the Chinese product rules and regulations and be aware of the most important government initiatives influencing the market. Therefore, it is important to be aware of the existing regulations, regulatory bodies and the process on how to achieve conformity. The regulative environmental in China is a constant process of change. Therefore, we try to give you an overview to summarize the different aspects to need consideration. Also, the requirements for each product are highly individual depending on the specification application. It is therefore highly recommended that companies seek professional advice as they plan to sell a product in China if they don't have the resources in-house. Okay. Concerning the standardization situation in China, there are 4 levels of standards based on the structure of a hierarchical pyramid, with the national standards on top and the enterprise standard on bottom. These levels are hierarchical, which means that national supersedes professional, which supersedes local, and so on. Chinese standards are either mandatory or voluntary. Mandatory standards have the force of law and are therefore compulsory, as do other technical regulations in China. The standards have the goal of protecting human health, personal property, and safety. Standards outside these characteristics are considered as voluntary standards. It is important to note that individual Chinese agencies also develop mandatory regulatory requirements. The national standards, so-called Gubiao standards, are better known by GB. As their name suggested, they apply nationwide, set unified product requirements, and are often but not necessarily harmonized with international standards. There are more than 22,000 voluntary GB standards up to now. Approximately 50%, around about 3,100, are mandatory. The national standards are maintained by the Standardization Administration of China. The professional standards, also called industry or sector standard, are valid nationwide and being applied where no national standards exist. Professional standards cover all industry sectors in China and are under the responsibility of the Chinese sectoral ministries and administration. Local standards or provincial standards are developed when neither national nor professional standards exist, but unified requirements for safety and hygienic or industrial product are needed within a certain local area. These standards can be understood in a similar way to national standards in Europe. Enterprise standards are never mandatory and are developed by individual companies on their own initiatives. An enterprise standard is usually fulfilling a gap in the market. Okay.
Should I click for you, or did you already? Oh, Markus? I do think now we have lost him. Okay, just see. So I have to apologize because actually what happened now is that we lost him. Markus? So probably now I would say that Klaus is overtaking till we probably get Markus back. Let's see. Okay, I overhand to Klaus, who will talk about now the government bodies.
Yeah, hello everybody. On this slide you see now a bit the regulatory environment. The key organizations involved in construction sector and green building materials is certainly EUSME, which is the Ministry or the Administration for Quality. Then you have MIIT, which is the Minister of Information Technology and Industry. So it is in charge for, let's say, the industrial production in China. And then you have the Ministry for Housing and Urban Rural Development, MOHUD. And you see on these slides many other bodies which are involved in the making, especially of standards for green buildings. Government initiatives are many in this field, and we would like to list some for you here. First of all, the 12th five-year plan, which calls for CO2 and energy consumption reduction. It contains also strict evaluation criteria for local governments, asking for 1 billion square meter of green buildings until 2015, which is very soon, and that 20% of the buildings should meet 3-star label requirements. I will revert to these 3-star label requirements later in the discussion. The next point, this ambitious goal, the Chinese government developed and issued the energy codes for residential buildings to increase the energy efficiency of newly constructed buildings in urban areas. These codes regulate minimum energy requirements for different building components like power systems, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and the building envelope, for example, insulation. These energy codes, also known as minimum energy performance standards or MEPS, set minimal requirements concerning building design and provisioning during the construction phase. These codes are mandatory for all newly constructed urban buildings. Currently, there are 3 codes for urban residential buildings in 4 climate zones and 1 code for commercial buildings in all climate zones. You have to understand here that China has a huge variety of climate zones, from the very hot south to the cool and dry north and west of the country. So this requires also these different building codes. Besides this, and now I come to this 3-star building rating system, China implemented this green buildings rating system, which was developed and managed by MOHURD, the Ministry for Construction in China, and the Green Label Office at the China Green Technology Center. The building may earn a green design building label, allowing the project to be marketed as a green building to the community and to get government subsidies. The 3-star system assigns a score based on the predicted performance of the building. MOHURD universities rate 1-star and 2-star building application or local governments, while 3-star building applications are directly rated by the ministry. Next, the 3-star building label is comparable to the US-developed LEED label, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, which is also being adopted in China. LEED and 3-star label are common elements and a common goal, to reduce a building's environmental impact. But the two systems diverge in their ratings and review process. The significant difference between LEED and the 3-star system is that the 3-star system rates energy efficiency after 1 year of operation and not in the design phase, whilst LEED allows this evaluation during the design phase. Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design was developed by the United States Green Building Council in 1998 and includes 11 million square meters of certified space in China.
Okay, Klaus, thank you very much for jumping in for Markus. We probably would go, or will go now to the next to the next poll. Now I think we would launch now. So what is your interest basically? We would like to know from the audience, what's your interest in product regulations in the green building sector? You see the 4 answers. So probably you would like to sell components, or you are already selling in China, or you are just interested in the topic, or you have joined for another reason. Now the poll is open. Markus, are you back? No, I cannot hear him. So okay, I would say we close the poll. In terms of results, most of our audience today has a general interest in the topic. It's about 44%. And then the next ones are already selling green building components or have joined for other reasons. No, actually, it's very bad. So let's see. Let's see if Markus is back. Markus, do you understand me? Hello? Because if not, we would go to the next slide. And probably I will hand over to Klaus again because Markus is not...
Yeah, now the next part is about how to introduce a new standard in green building area. At the beginning we will mention that the steps needed to achieve regulative adherence for a green building component are highly individual and depend on a multitude of aspects, including the product specifications, its application, and the level of novelty to the Chinese market. There are different ways on how to get a regulative adherence, so the main goal should be to find the easiest and fastest way which fits to the product and the market access strategy. Here are some typical questions which can lead an SME to find the best way to get regulative adherence. In an individual case, experts may suggest further or more detailed questions. As one of the first steps, it is highly recommended to check for similar products already on the Chinese market. On one hand, it is much easier to get hints on what is needed for regulatory compliance by learning from others. On the other hand, the competitor normally already did the costly and time-consuming work for building up standardization committees or testing procedures. The second question is if there is already a national standard. National standards do often, but necessarily also include some compulsory certification or licensing, like, for example, the CCC. If there is no national standards, the third question would be whether there are professional or industry standards. This type of standards is applied when no national standard exists. Professional standards cover all industry sectors in China and are the responsibility of Chinese sectorial ministries and administrations. The fourth question is the question whether there are local standards or requirements. Now, unlike many other areas of industrial production, in the construction sector, these local standards are relevant, and there are actually many of them. They are addressing specific geographic needs, cultural needs. They also have to do with the climate zone. So you have to look around for these local standards. Some products indeed require adherence to local standards. Regulations are often tested and adapted on a local level before they are introduced nationally. The next question is to check whether there are other technical or special regulations. There are different Chinese government bodies who issue special regulations concerning product groups outside of the standard system. An example is the special fire safety requirements on wall insulation issued by the Ministry of Public Security after some fire incidents. Finally, you have to look also for voluntary standards. Even if a certain standard or label is not mandatory, it could well be that they are demanded by clients or help to increase the general marketability of a certain product. Important questions here are: which voluntary labels are available and do clients demand them? Which labels do the companies have? Are there voluntary requirements that will be mandatory in the near future, and does it therefore make sense to already adhere to those regulations? And what influence do have government initiatives on the product requirements and the market acceptance? It is indeed necessary to introduce a new standard. If it is indeed necessary to introduce a new standard, you have to consider that the standardization process is time-consuming and it's very important to be well prepared to go through the process smoothly to start your business successfully in China. A new national standard or national standardization process should only be started when all other possibilities are not exhausted. Time, personnel and financial resources that are needed for standardization process can overwhelm a single SME. So if you can find a team of several companies to go for standard, that will be the way to go. A standardization process can go well over 2 years with uncertain outcome. And it is important that you cooperate with other companies, especially other companies in China. A company that needs a new standard and wants to influence the outcome would have to initiate the standardization process and lobby the authorities, for example, the Standards Administration of China and other involved parties to show the need for a new standard. Then the company needs to delegate employees or third-party experts to influence the working groups, creating the standards, and maybe even provide a draft for these new standards. In any way, you have to follow the whole process, standardization process, as you know it from Europe. The process is well defined in China. It is the same for national standard or sector standards. You have to first submit a proposal, which then, if it's accepted by the Standard Administration of China, becomes a working item for the technical committee. In the next phase, the technical committee will be assigned, and the technical committee will then assign a working group with this task. Standards are then compiled in these working groups. In these working groups, individuals will participate which are knowledgeable in the topic. So if you can contribute an expert to this working group, that's absolutely desirable, and it will also help that the standard becomes what you were expecting. Participation in technical committees follows the stakeholder principle, so all interested parties can contribute if they wish to do so. Special interest groups, academic and research groups, conformity assessment bodies, and government entities are usually participating. Now the steps to introduce the standard continue now with the draft, which is then distributed for comments, circulated to stakeholders, and for public consultation. Once this draft is approved, the working group will finalize it, and at the end it is SAC for national standards, the Standard Administration of China for national standards, or the ministry in charge for sector standards to approve the standard. Next. The cost as well, the time needed for standardization process varies depending on multiple factors and often hard to predict. A complete sector or national standard development can well take around 2 years and involve multiple stakeholders like government bodies and working groups. The cost of standardization varies but comprises of mainly of the following cost blocks: cost of internal and external coordination, cost of lobbying, cost of expert consultancy, expenses of working groups and experts, fees from government agencies and institutions. What we want to explain to you here is, if you have no standard, it is possible to go through the process. It's not easy, but it's doable, and we have many examples where it has been done successfully, and the standard then allowed the company to introduce the product to China. We now will show a case study which is now going through the process. It's called WK Natural Fiber. It is a company which was set up in 2008. The company is focused on sustainable, 100% degradable components which can be used in different fields. It is specialized on natural biodegradable components, and WK will provide knowledge, technology, and tailor-made solutions for these composites. In comparison to existing composites on the market, which normally use glass fibers or synthetic plastics, this company is focusing now on natural fibers. So, for example, on straw. The technology is patented and is, as I mentioned, using biofibers only. It fulfills basically the legal requirements, the one in both in Europe, but also legal requirements in China, and it also seems to fulfill customer demands like fire protection and acoustic. Now, as there is no standards available in China, these products can well be introduced into the country, but it cannot be used in buildings because the authorities in charge for building permits will only allow products for which it's clear that they comply with existing standards. So without these standards, you will never obtain a building permit in China. What has the company done to get to this point? They started with a market analysis. After establishing a showcase in Austria, the company evaluated the market for possible investment or licensing opportunities. China has been chosen as the market with a very high potential for different reasons: huge and growing construction sector, government support, and push for green building, no direct competition. Representation in China. The company decided to set up a representative office in Beijing to start promoting its technology and to get better information on the opportunities, but also the challenges in the Chinese market. The local presence seemed to be extraordinarily important to access the Chinese market, since the typical multi-level business relationships needed a constant networking and lobbying effort. Further analysis. WK Natural Fiber had identified the construction market as the sector with the biggest potential and therefore concentrated on insulation and interior work, things like wall panels. Further research showed also big challenges in the insulation market because of special regulations which were introduced after some fire incidents which led to strict regulations. Challenges. After analysis of the product requirements, the legal framework in the insulation field, WK decided to proceed with its China engagement in this field. With the knowledge gained, WK can now provide potential Chinese or foreign investors with clear steps on how to overcome the relative challenges and still profit from the huge market potential. Potential investors and licensees can now be provided with a clear roadmap on how to fulfill the necessary legislative requirements and how to implement the WK Natural Fiber technology on the specific markets. Now the next step is to find investors or licensees. Currently, WK is looking for investors or licensees through its local representative office in Beijing. The current situation is that there is a very positive feedback for the introduction of the material, the component to the Chinese market. The company is ready for any cooperation on the Chinese market like investment, partnership, licensing, or other form of cooperation. The company offers a complete package for product market implementation. Now the learnings of WK. A local representation is a must for introduction of such products. The Chinese regulative framework is hard to grasp. Professional advice is recommended. Products that may interfere with public security need to follow very strict regulation. The process to get compliance is time and resource consuming. And there is a unique momentum for the introduction of green solutions to the Chinese market as they are much promoted by Chinese government. The overall market potential for smart green solution is very promising. This despite the high regulatory hurdles. The summary of the report and the webinar is that in recent years we have seen a big push towards a more sustainable society with green building in the forefront of substantial government initiatives. There's a high-level emphasis on energy efficiency that will push the demand for energy-efficient components in the building sector considerably. Despite the undoubtedly big market potential, Western SMEs are facing a multitude of challenges while trying to enter the Chinese market with their products. One of them is the Chinese local framework concerning mandatory and voluntary product standards, regulations and labels. The regulative framework can be especially challenging for innovative and green products in the building sector. If a company wants to introduce a product that is new to the Chinese market and therefore does not fit into any existing regulation, a standardization process has to be initiated if all easier possibilities have been crossed out before. Practical cases have shown companies that invested heavily in production capabilities in China and were ready to produce, but then could not sell their products on the Chinese market for a long time because the standardization process has been delayed. At the same time, they still had to bear the running cost. So it's something you have to very much think about, that the standardization process will take a lot of time. On the other hand, you have to have some prototypes ready, otherwise you cannot initiate the standardization process. So you have to find a way to link the investments and the time which it takes until you are ready, until you have a regulatory environment which is ready to accept your products. The regulatory environment in China is in constant process of change. In addition, the requirements for each product are highly individual depending on the specification, application, novelty to the Chinese market and other aspects. It is therefore highly recommended that companies seek professional advice as they plan to work in or with China. Thank you.
Yeah, Klaus, thank you very much for overtaking from Markus. As you have seen, yeah, Klaus mentioned a lot of, a lot of things concerning the green building sector where Markus has started. He also mentioned a report which is existing besides the webinar, which is currently under review. It had been produced by Markus, so it would have been good to have him, but we are still happy to have him, or to have him until the mid of the webinar. So currently the report is under review and will be soon published on our website if you have more detailed questions. And currently, okay. If you have any questions, it would be the time now to place them on the questions panel you currently can see on the screen. If not, again, you still can reach us via our website. I also mentioned the report, which will be available soon. As soon as the webinar is finished, or you stop with the webinar, there will be a short questionnaire where we will be always very happy if you fill it out to get your feedback and to make it better. Unfortunately, I cannot, or I have no influence on the internet or the internet speed. This is always a bit of a tricky challenge here when communicating with Europe. So if in any case you have no questions, you can stay in touch with us reading our newsletters. We are also on the social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. And I thank you very much for your patience today, because I still see no one has a question. So this could be a good or a bad sign. Either it was just like overwhelming and too much information on one side, or on the other, no question is open so far. I would say still, if you like to ask, there are many ways to contact us. Please don't hesitate, and there will be our report soon. Let me see. We just get... okay. We just got one question. But we will see, because actually the question was about if we have, if there are any comments of Klaus regarding the window market in China. I would like to take this question to address it to Markus, because Klaus actually is a standardization and market conformity expert, and not so much one into the window market, if you would allow. So actually I cannot see any further questions, and would like to thank you, and have a great day in Europe, and a great afternoon here in China, and join us for the next webinars, which will be in May, each week, a couple of them on different topics. Yeah, and bye bye from Beijing.